Hey folks, Pat here from DNS, and this Madison area fishing report is current as of October 4th. Well, it's actually been pretty busy here at the shop this morning, especially for an October morning, but you're definitely not complaining, and I can't blame for folks for wanting to get out. The weather's beautiful, so um, let's see if we can knock this report out though quick. It's that time of year where the salmon are running up the tributaries off Lake Michigan, so I'm going to start every report checking in with the Thiensville fish camera. I mention it all the time. This is a camera that monitors a fish passage on the Milwaukee River at Thiensville. And yesterday there was a bunch of salmon coming through. Harley said Sunday there was a ton of salmon coming through. So there just goes a little something swimming downstream. But anyway, we're going to check in on this. It's super cool. The salmon are running. We're going to talk about that later. So yeah, just always like to check in with that. A couple fishing season updates here. Some news coming up. Inland trout season is going to be closing October 15th. So what is that? It's a Tuesday, I think. So 2 Tuesdays from now, trout season will be closing. So get out there and get after it while you can. Also, lake sturgeon season is closed. It closed on the 30th, and I hope anybody that made it out. I know I saw some pics of some nice fish, but I hope if you made it out, you got some good ones. As far as shop news goes, nothing still on the poster or on the front door except for the Troy Farms stuff they had going on this summer. Their last event is their Harvest Fest coming up this Saturday. If you're in the neighborhood, go check them out. Great folks. Otherwise, yeah, we'll be taking that poster down, making a bunch of room for all of the fishery and ice events that are going to be coming up here pretty soon. So yeah, definitely looking forward to winter. Also, yeah, congrats to Harley. You probably saw this post. He got his first muskie on the fly Wednesday, and so yeah, super happy for him. Congratulations, and I know he was really stoked. So yeah, get out there. Muskie fishing's only going to get better, so get out there and do that if that's your thing. You know, of course, I mentioned ice is on the way. Hopefully, right? Hopefully, right? Ice is coming. We got our tip ups out, got our bush light hole covers, and bush light rods, and a bunch of other stuff is going to be coming out. But if you come in the shop and you see the pegboards looking like this, we're not going out of business. We're just paring stuff down, getting ready for ice. So yeah, we'll be getting that stuff. I just got two big pallets in this morning. It's a lot of summer stuff, but there's definitely a lot of ice stuff that's going to be coming out too. So stay tuned for that. I guess that pretty much does it for the report. We can get into, or for the news, we can get into the report. Well, it's been nice to have a cool down from the heat this last week, and outside of a little sprinkle last night, it's been dry here in Madison. The foreseeable future looks gorgeous with no rain in the forecast and highs mostly in the 70s. So make sure you get out and enjoy the nice weather while it's here. Winter's not far away, I promise. The Mendota buoy site is still down. I was talking with Noah Humfeld just this morning and from Madison Angling Guide Service, and he was out yesterday and reported 68 degrees on Monona, which pretty much lines up with what a lot of folks have been reporting here at the shop too. Noah was saying he noticed a bit of an algae bloom on Monona yesterday, and I've heard water gets greener as you go down the chain to Wabisa and Kegonsa, but this cooler water definitely helps keep those algae blooms at bay, and I would expect, looking at the forecast, we're in pretty good shape as far as water quality goes. There are no tournaments registered on the DNR website, so open fishing, there's really not going to be much happening the rest of the year probably. But generally around the chain, with the cooler temps and shorter days upon us, fish know that winter's not far away, so they got their fall feed bag on and they're starting to bulk up. Generally speaking, although the weed line is getting a little more difficult to find as weeds die back, they're still the best place to start looking for fish. But don't be afraid to get right in the weeds this time of year, and we'll talk about that as we go through the report. Bluegill action around town continues to be good, with lots of gills being found in 10 feet of water and less. Now, as the weeds start to die back, look for those fish in pockets right in the weeds. There are some gills suspended out over the deep water on Monona, but they're definitely starting to move shallow these days. Bluegill bite off the Monona Terrace wall continues to be good, but really as far as gills go, a jig topped with a small piece of redworm, a spiker, wax worm is really all you need anywhere on the chain. Crappies continue to be elusive, but are being found here and there on weed edges and near structure. The usual fall evening crappie bite on the Monona Terrace wall hasn't materialized yet, but no matter where you fish, a crappie minnow or a minnow-shaped plastic on a small jig head is a pretty safe bet for those fish anywhere you go. Unfortunately, other than a few reports here and there, I'm still not hearing much in the way of perch around town. I've been hearing about some white bass chasing schools of bait fish around that I'll touch on later. Bass have been in a good mood. Around the chain, largemouth are up shallow for the most part, and as the weeds die back, that actually concentrates the fish in what weeds are left. So weedless rig, plastic, swim jigs are all good options. Of course, topwater frog bite continues to be good, but don't be afraid to run chatterbaits and lipless crankbaits over the tops of submerged weeds as things start to clear up here. Smallmouth are being found on weed lines and right in the weeds, especially in rocky areas. Noah was saying he's been having great smallie action, running paddle tails through weeds in rocky areas as shallow as 4 to 6 feet, even in the middle of the day, and picking up some dandy walleye in there too. Speaking of, in addition to shallow, rocky, weedy areas, the walleyes are still being found on mid-lake humps in good numbers. Half a crawler or a large fathead on a jig or drop shot, slip bobbers are a good idea for those fish. That's not to say folks aren't getting plenty of fish trolling crankbaits and still crawler harnesses. Uh, but of course, when the walleye move up shallow at night to feed, jerk baits and swim baits are great options. If you're casting from shore at night, you might as well toss out a lighted bobber with a large fathead to cover all your bases there too. I know the muskie action's been picking up as evidenced by Harley's fish, and I know Noah's been putting several fish in the boat, running bucktails and glide baits over the tops of shallow weeds the last few weeks. That fishing is, again, only going to improve as the water cools down. Pike are plentiful around the chain, but that action has especially been picking up, especially on Mendota, as those fish start to bulk up for winter. Area rivers and streams are running at about their average seasonal levels for this time of year. A little more detail as we get into it here. Up to Cherokee, still a lot of weeds up there, but they are dying back, so you can find pockets of weeds running topwater stuff. Might get you some bass or some pike. I've been hearing about some good action up there. Otherwise, always, if you got a small watercraft, you can launch here at the school road launch. Get out in that channel and find some more fish. And easier fishing. The 113 bridge, there's still, every now and then I hear about a nice cat come out of there, but it's really just a nice mixed bag place this time of year. And, for the rest of the fall, I've been hearing about some walleyes, been hearing about pike, bass, of course, down there, panfish. You just never know. So it's a great local spot to check out for sure. But like I mentioned, the cats have dispersed back out into the main lake. Still hearing about them being picked up randomly everywhere. Been hearing a few more reports, more off Warner Breakwall, Tenney Breakwall, University Shoreline. All those spots have been producing cats. Soaking crawlers on the bottom is good, but I had a kid in the other day. He said he uses beef sticks, just puts a hunk of beef stick down on a hook and does well. So anyway, yeah, catfish, they're all giants and they're a lot of fun. Bluegills are out. Are in weeds, and the population of them has been great. It seems like there's a lot of big fish, of course, like Mendota is known for, but I've been hearing about a lot of smaller fish coming up behind them, which you don't really hear about much on Mendota, but been hearing about a lot of those smaller fish coming off the west end and some in the weeds up here kind of on the northwest end. But nice bluegills coming off all areas of the lakes, kind of weed edges right in the weeds. Mid-lake humps, they're mixed in with the walleyes. So yeah, that's very encouraging. I personally love chasing big bluegills, and I know a lot of you do too. So yeah, mid-lake humps are great. The perch action just remains to be a mystery. Folks are getting them on the west end. I saw a report online. A guy was getting them into a mount from the hatch cover, and I have heard similar reports. If you can get right in the weeds, that's probably your best bet. A redworm's been great. Right in the weeds, kind of up here again on this northwest and the North Bay area has been good. But yeah, the fish are out there. I think they're just hidden in the weeds right now. Crappies are, scattered around, and the size quality of those fish has been great. Hopefully those fish are making a comeback too. Walleyes mixed in with the smallmouths that Noah was talking about. Rocky, weedy areas. So think about places like Maple Bluff, Governor's Island, Second Point, Picnic Point. Anywhere you can find rocky areas with weeds, you're probably going to find smallies. Walleyes mixed in with them too. Walleyes also out on mid-lake humps, Dunn's Bar, Brearley Bar, Second Point, Commodore. All the usual suspects out there have good walleye action right now. Night fishing for walleyes has definitely been picking up. University Shoreline at night, Tenney Park, Warner Park Breakwall, all good spots. Speaking of Tenney, below the breakwall there, sounds like, or below the locks, the breakwall has actually been a nice mixed bag of fish down there. Below the locks, though, has been slow this last week from some of the regulars that fish down there. A lot of small gills in the lagoon to keep a young person busy, and a decent population of largemouth bass in there. The area down here where the river dumps in has been heating up lately. I think the fish like to stack up there in the fall, and I've actually been hearing about some good walleye coming out of the river at night in there. But down on Monona, same kind of thing as always. A lot of gills on weed edges and right in the weeds. So if you don't find them on the weed edge, push into the weeds. If you can find pockets in the weeds, great. The perch action out there, I just have not heard much about perch, but I'm sure they're out there. Let's see what else. Bluegill bite is really the star of Monona as usually. So down here off the Monona Terrace wall, the bluegill bite remains good down there during the day. The crappie bite that usually comes in there in the evenings not hasn't really materialized. I'm not sure what's going on there. Good bluegill bite in Monona Bay, especially along Birmingham Park and the triangles as well. And again, there the crappies. I just haven't heard about crappies that are usually showing up in those spots, but hopefully they're doing okay. Lake Winger, the muskie action out there has been picking up. I've been hearing a few good reports. Typically, those fish run on the smaller side, although I did hear a guy was in the other day and had a 46-inch that a buddy of his had pulled. Otherwise, tons of small bluegills in there if you want to keep a young person busy. And the largemouth bass population's pretty great in there. Otherwise, back on Monona, the musky fishing's definitely picking up and hearing about some nice fish. Like I said, Noah's been doing great running glide baits and bucktails over shallow weeds. Good gills in Tenny Park and Weechawuk Bay down here. Down to Upper Mud, the dredge hole over here has been holding some good fish. Brian Zupi tells me, fish the edges, but there are also fish suspended out over the weeds there, or out over the dredge hole there. Otherwise, down here on Wabisa, I haven't heard much in the way of muskies. Good bass action up here in the north end of the lake. Lots of bluegills and bass down in the south end of the lake. And the walleye action over here off Babcock Park has been good. And some crappies on weed edges there. But yeah, it's been good fishing. And like I said, the walleye action should pick up down here. And the muskie action should also pick up pretty soon. I'm going to give her a pause here. All right, and we're back. So yeah, anyway, Wabisa has been fishing pretty well. It sounds like it's picking up there. Down to Kegonsa, still hearing about a lot of gills down there. A lot of nice gills, of course. The southeast end of the lake here has been hot. Also up near Fish Camp on the north end of the lake has been good for gills. Been hearing about a few walleyes showing up in the Lake Kegonsa State Park area, kind of off Williams Point here. So that action's picking up, and a lot of small walleyes, the young of the year walleyes. The bluegill guys have been talking about picking up a lot of young walleyes out there. So that's good to hear, and obviously good for the future. The Rock River's running back down at its normal flows. The folks have been getting a nice mixed bag of fish down to the Indian Ford Dam and up at the Jefferson Dam. Koshkonong has been fishing great if you want to catch everything but walleyes. So I hear about white bass, crappies, sheep's head, all kinds of different fish. But the walleyes sound like it's been a little tough lately. But yeah, like I said, Jefferson Dam's been fishing well. Haven't heard much out of Beaver Dam. Haven't heard much out of Devil's Lake State Park lately. But I'm sure the trout are going to start moving shallow, and that's a great time to target those fish because they start to kind of cruise the shorelines looking for spawning areas. The Wisconsin River is also back down to its normal levels for this time of year, so that means low water. But of course, what that also means is that the low water concentrates fish in areas where there's deeper water. So you're looking at areas behind sandbars, you're looking at inside corners of, or I guess that's outside corners, I'm not sure. Anyway, corners where the water's a little bit deeper, shoreline structure, but also, just cruise along, look for smallmouth busting schools of bait fish on the surface, and you just toss anything minnowish into that fray, and you're likely going to get hooked up. I also been hearing about good frog bite, so tossing frogs right at banks, shorelines, as tight as you can get, has been producing some good smallmouth up there. Otherwise, as always, a nice mixed bag at the dams, all the way up and down the river, Prairie du Sac, Castle Rock, Petenwell, all good, Wisconsin Dells, all good mixed bag up there. But I've been especially hearing about white bass action being great at those. Same thing kind of on all the flowages. They're all pretty much the same this time of year. Trolling for walleyes, shoreline breaks, stuff like that. Panfish in shallow bays and structure. And it sounds like the fishing's been pretty good. And a good smallmouth bite on Lake Wisconsin specifically that I've heard about. But like I said, white bass at the Dells, Castle Rock Dam, Petenwell Dam, walleyes, shoreline breaks at all the flowages. Mississippi River's been fishing well. I was just talking with Kurt, who used to work here at the shop. He's been fishing out there in the Mississippi River, fishing wing dams. Bite's been good out there for walleyes and smallmouth on wing dams. Perch bite on weed lines if you can find some weeds. Panfish, rocky shorelines has been good. But yeah, fall is just such an awesome time to be out fishing. And I guess maybe, at least for somebody like me, the star of that fall fishing is the salmon run. So the salmon are running up the river. You know, we were talking about the Thiensville fish camera. That camera, by the way, is up here in Thiensville. So it's a ways north of Milwaukee, but the river, of course, flows south. And yeah, a lot of fish I've been hearing about at Kletch Park, at um, at Estabrook Park, and up and down the river. So, and also, you know, all the other trips, the Root, Menominee, all those rivers up and down the East Coast are full of salmon right now, and it's a great time to get out there. Craig Amacher, local guide, calls it the salmon rodeo because it really is a great time to be out, and there's just a lot of fish around. I guess that pretty much does it for the open water or conventional side of things. But as far as trout fishing goes, also the best time of year to be out. I mentioned trout season closes October 15th, so that's 2 Tuesdays from now. Get out there and enjoy it while you can. On the spinning gear side of things, of course, as always, Rapala countdowns, crappie sized tube jigs, small spinners, and spoons are a pretty safe bet. If you want to toss meat, you can do that. A red worm under a bobber is a great option. Otherwise, on the fly side of things, mayfly and caddis hatches are becoming more frequent. In fact, I was out on Wednesday. Maybe you saw a post. I caught a nice brown trout there on a hopper, but there were definitely blue-winged olives and caddis coming off, both species, right in the middle of the day. So I didn't see any fish rising to them. They were more interested in my hoppers, but once the hoppers kind of go away, if they go away, we need that first frost to kind of kill them off. But anyway, keep some blue-winged olives and some caddis in your box. These are the hoppers I like to fish. And for our Happy Fly Day feature, I almost forgot about that. But then otherwise, you know, these little flies here, tan caddis, most of them are going to be a nice tan or a lighter colored caddis. I like to throw in these like sparkle duns, and I can't remember the name of this one. But these mayfly patterns that actually use a bit of elk hair can be super great because they also can look like a caddis. So anyway, those we got plenty of those in stock. And but yeah, like I said, for my money right now, as long as the first freeze hasn't happened, use a hopper. You're going to have a lot of great action, and it's a great time. That pretty much does it for the report. Do feel free to call the shop at 241-4225 if you feel you want us to expand on anything. Otherwise, post your comments and catches below. Love to see that stuff. And thank you for tuning in. We will talk to you next week. Take care.